Russia stresses that the opportunity to solve the crisis in Syria through dialogue must be seized immediately. In flagrant violation of international law, France and Britain declare intention to arm the terrorist groups in Syria. Our army units target terrorists in several areas, killing and wounding dozens of them. Good afternoon, I'm Yerado Krikorian from the News Center in Damascus. The Russian Foreign Ministry has stressed the presence of a chance to solve the crisis in Syria that must be seized regardless of the schemes hatched by Syria's enemies. The ministry's spokesman Alexander Lukashevich said in a statement that his country is committed to its principled stance exists. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov renewed Russia's stand about considering any armament of the Syrian opposition as being illegal and contradict the international law. During a press conference with his British counterpart, Lavrov renewed the rejection of his country to any preconditions for the dialogue, reiterating that the Syrian people are the ones who should determine their own future. Lavrov pointed out that arming the Syrian opposition is against the principles of international law, recalling the Libyan example which led to catastrophic consequences.
Those who support the opposition should urge it, as we do, to speed up the formation of a negotiating team. We call on the Western countries to help form this team in order to conduct negotiations with the Syrian government. This is the only way of stopping the bloodshed in that country.
Iran has warned that Syria has become a main target for the terrorist groups that were formed and trained in Afghanistan by American and Western intelligence. This Iranian stand was reiterated by the Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdullahian during a press conference he held at the Iranian embassy in the Algerian capital. He expressed his country's condemnation of terrorism anywhere in the world. Abdullahian also denounced Saudi military interventions in Bahrain. In a flagrant violation of international law, French Foreign Minister Laurent Fabius has declared his country's and Britain's intention to supply terrorist groups in Syria with weapons. Fabius has been quoted as saying that France and Britain will ask for advancing the date of the EU upcoming meeting on arms embargo to Syria and will ask the Europeans to lift the embargo if no consensus is reached on this issue. He added, both countries will take a unilateral decision on providing the Syrian opposition with arms under the pretext that France is a sovereign state, as he put it. Army units clashed members of terrorist groups along al-Asmai street in Jobar neighborhood in Damascus countryside, killing a number of them and injuring others. Terrorist Anas al-Batosh, leader of the so-called military operations in Jobar, was identified among the dead, in addition to terrorists Omar Arida and Naim al-Hamwi. Army units destroyed weapons and ammunition warehouse for terrorists in the city of Qara and Yabrud, killing and wounding scores of them. An official source confirmed that 3 mortar shells were fired on the central prison in the city of Homs, causing material damages. Meanwhile, army units inflicted heavy damages on the terrorists who were committing acts of looting and murder in the neighborhoods of Al-Khalidiyeh, Bab Sba, Al-Qarabis and Jurat al-Shayyah. Our armed forces destroyed 2 cars and killed the terrorists inside it in Al-Buwaida al-Sharqiyya, Al-Ghusaybiya and Ad-Dar al-Kabira in Homs. Meanwhile, an official source denied reports about the incursion of terrorists into Homs citadel, stressing that these claims are false and baseless. The source added that these false reports aim at targeting the morale of our army, which is scoring direct hits against the terrorists. Also in Homs, armed forces last night foiled several attempts by terrorist groups to infiltrate into Syria from the Lebanese territories in the countryside of Tel Kalakh in Homs. The terrorists tried to cross the border from Lebanon at the sites of Al-Mathuma, Ayun al-Shara and Qriyat in Tel Kalakh countryside. Army units targeted terrorist hideouts in Al-Huka and Jbayliya towns in Deir ez-Zor, inflicting heavy losses upon them. A source in the governorate pointed out that army has conducted an operation in Al-Mrea village during which a den used by terrorists was destroyed, killing scores of gunmen inside it. Our armed forces continued to chase terrorists in the areas of Idlib countryside, destroying their ammunition warehouses and killing dozens of them. A military source pointed out that scores of terrorists were killed and wounded in Syria city, and a number of their vehicles and weapons were destroyed in a Shghar area. Syrian Arab army troops have been able to clear Jbala village in the surroundings of Wadi Daif in Idlib suburbs of the armed terrorist groups. The army dealt severe blows to the terrorists in their hideouts and the tunnels they had dug in Jbala in Ma'arit al-Nu'man. The army was also able to record phone calls between the terrorists and their emir, which revealed their confusion and internal differences. The people of As-Sulaymaniya and Al-Midan in Aleppo have taken to the street in a huge march in support of the Syrian Arab army and in appreciation of the sacrifices it has offered in order to restore security and stability and eliminate terrorism. Participants in the march also condemned terrorist acts committed by armed groups with the support of Western and regional countries. They also stressed that all Syrians will join ranks with the Syrian Arab army in their battle in defense of the homeland in the face of terrorism. Have called demonstrations tomorrow Friday in Cairo and other governorates, calling for the removal of President Mohammed Morsi and the Muslim Brotherhood organization and in support of the army and armed forces. The absence of security in Egypt has led to the death of a young man in Al-Dahaliya. The most outstanding protest, the Dome of Departure, is to be staged in front of Al-Qubba Palace, after which a sit-in will be declared until the departure of Morsi regime and the Muslim Brotherhood. Al-Minassa Revolutionaries Movement also declared a demonstration tomorrow in front of the Unknown Soldier Monument and Al-Minassa in Nasr town in Cairo under the motto, "The Last Chance." Meanwhile, popular coalitions in some Egyptian governorates are getting ready to organize protests calling for Morsi's departure. According to informed sources, the Muslim Brotherhood has called on officials to empty the party's headquarters of any imported material in fear of acts of storming ends by the demonstrators. In Bahrain, the second Al-Karama strikes activities have kicked off, coinciding with the second anniversary of the entrance of Saudi troops into the country on March 14, 2011, to help Al-Khalifa regime in suppressing the widespread popular protests calling for change. According to media sources, the regime's forces used bullets and tear gas to quell the protests, leaving several casualties. A number of demonstrators were detained. Several Several protests were staged in a number of Bahraini cities, urging the withdrawal of Saudi troops and calling for bringing them to account at international courts due to the violations they had committed against the unarmed Bahraini people. They also called for toppling Al-Khalifa regime, releasing the detainees and referring to trial those involved in killing innocent citizens. The Iranian army has carried out maneuvers on a wide scale in the center of the country to improve the missiles unit's field readiness in case of threats against Iran. The Iranian army successfully fired Nazi'at 10 and Fajr missiles during the maneuvers, in addition to locally produced developed defensive systems. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more news about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Khalid Saqabani after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. The Syrian and the Iranian governments have signed an agreement on the mutual cooperation to register the pharmaceutical products and the medical equipment. The agreement provides for the exchange of the medical products between the two countries through the overcoming of the obstacles to enable the products to easily and freely enter into the Syrian and Iranian markets. The agreement will help in securing the Syrian market's needs of the necessary meds that are not locally produced, such as the meds that are used for treating the chronic diseases. The Syrian side also signed a number of agreements with several Iranian drug manufacturing companies with the aim of securing all the needs of the health ministry and the hospitals and the health centers, which are heavily affected by the acts of the armed terrorist groups. The manager of the organic production department at the agricultural ministry announced that it made a 60% turnover compared to the other products that use fertilizers and pesticides. He also noted the importance of developing the production as it is a source of income for the state, providing the growing international demand. The ministry on its part called on all the departments to grant the organic farmers permits and to help make their work faster. The Small Business Development Fund branch in al-Assad has granted about 3.3 million Syrian pounds to families in the nearby towns. The manager of the branch announced that each registered family got a grant of about 50,000 Syrian pounds to set up small projects, adding that there were also grants to help the livestock farmers. The American spot oil is up, heading for the highest settlement in 2 weeks. The futures also climbed by as much as 0.5% in New York, while the Brent was little changed in London. The total U.S. crude stockpiles climbed to the highest level since 1982. The U.S. stocks index futures climbed by about, with the Standard & Poor's 500 index climbing to an advance towards a record high. The European stocks advanced to a 4-year high, and the U.S. index futures were up, while the Asian shares were little changed. Gold traded near a 2-week high as the U.S. data was issued and it was showing the stressing economy. Also, this damped the haven assets. The spot gold also traded little changed, while the gold for April delivery slipped by as much as 0.4%. The yen fell for a second day against the dollar. The Japanese currency has approached a 4-year low versus the dollar, and it declined against the euro, as the yen also weakened by about 0.3% per dollar. With this, ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the end of our news bulletin for today. Thank you for joining us.